Hi besties, my name is Maddie and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be doing my October wrap-up. I read 13 books in October. I found some absolute bangers and then a few disappointments that I don't even really want to talk about. So unfortunately I only read 5 out of the 12 books I put on my October TBR, but I did start like 3 or 4 other ones. They just weren't hitting how I wanted them to, so I took a quick pause on them. And I feel like I was just in a mood reading type of mood. I didn't want to be told what to read, I wanted to read what I wanted to read. So let's go over the 13 books that I actually wanted to read. So I started my month with Daydream by Hannah Grace. I rated this book 4 stars. So this follows Holly and Henry. And Holly is like a book nerd. She's very smart. I think she owns a bookstore too. And Henry is just this kind of happy-go-lucky hockey player who has been procrastinating some classes and now he needs like a tutor. So Holly agrees to tutor him and then Henry agrees to help Holly on her book that she's writing. So it's kind of benefiting both of them and it's their story. I think this is the best one out of this entire series. I liked the other two, but I think this one has been my favorite. I love these two characters. I love the side characters' points too. I love the way these two characters fell for each other. Henry was so sweet and how he acts, I'm obsessed with it. Like I loved him. And I loved how Holly really came into herself throughout the story. Such a great book. And if you weren't quite sure starting with the other two, definitely pick up this one because I think this one is one of the best ones. Then I read Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. I obviously rated this book 5 stars. I mean, I cannot rate an Elsie Silver book lower than 5 stars, it feels like sometimes. This follows Weston and Skylar, and Skylar is like a big music star, and Weston is a single dad in this small town that Skylar is now going to be staying in to record her own album. And she needs a place to stay, so why not just stay with the single dad who has like an extra room, and it's their relationship throughout. I love them. I love a single dad. You know, I'll eat it up every single time. I'm really enjoying this like Rose Hill series that Elsie Silver has going on. Such a good time. And if you have not picked up an Elsie Silver book, please do so because you are doing yourself a disservice by not reading these absolute masterpieces of books. They are so much fun. Then I read The Truth We Burn by Monty J. I rated this book 4 stars. This is the second book in the Hollow Boys series. So this follows Rook and Sage is like the all-star golden girl. She's like head of the cheerleading squad, I believe. She's the mayor's daughter. Life just seems perfect for her. And then Rook is like the bad boy who likes to set things on fire. And some stuff happens and she disappears for a little bit and then she comes back trying to uncover what actually happened. And I don't want to say too much without giving anything away. And it's their story. And I love this one so much more than the first. The first one I was kind of put off by in the series, but this one really is starting to pique my interest and I cannot wait to finish like the rest of the series. I love that you had the past timeline of like their kind of relationship building and then what kind of crumbled and then like how they kind of got back and kind of worked together. I love the darker side of this book, and if you like the Devil's Night series, you should definitely pick up this series because it's kind of doing what Devil's Night wanted to do, just a little bit darker, and I think I'm eating that up so much more. Then I got an arc for Better Rehearsed by Ava Hunter, so I rated this book 4.5 stars. So this follows Ash and Nathaniel, and Ash is a death doula, and one of her clients wants her to go on this family vacation because he wants to kind of like tie up loose ends, make amends with his family that don't really get along. And in comes Nathaniel, who is his grandson, but Ash actually broke up his wedding a few years prior. So Nathaniel obviously cannot stand Ash at all, but they're going to work together to like make his grandpa's last wishes come true, and it is so good. I loved Ash so much. I felt so connected to Ash throughout this entire book. I loved her personality and how she interacted with people. Her one-liners to his dad, I was kicking my feet and giggling. She is so funny. I loved how much Nathaniel fell for Ash throughout it and like how he like noticed the little things that she did and how he would make her life a little bit better by doing a little extra step. So cute. And I also really enjoyed that their little like conflicts that they did have, it was resolved reasonably and it wasn't like a third act breakup or like them like having like difficulties throughout the book. It was always kind of like, oh, this is our little issue and we're working together. It's not me and you against each other, it's me and you against an issue. And I thought that was really an interesting take because typically in romance books you're getting more of like bickering back and forth instead of them working together to solve an issue. Highly recommend. Then I listened to All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda. So I rated this book 4 stars and honestly I don't remember anything that happened in this book. I don't know if it was me listening to it, but I don't really remember what happened. So I feel like it should be a 3-star and I might go back and change my rating because when I was sitting down to like figure out what books I read this month, I didn't even remember I read this one. Okay, so this follows Nicole, and her best friend went missing like 10 years prior, and now she's going back to her small town to kind of like help her dad because her dad's really sick. And then another girl goes missing at the same time she's there, and it's also told in reverse order. So you start at like day 15 or day 14, and you go to like when it happened. I don't know. I just don't think this writing style was for me. It made me very confused. Not my favorite, so I'm definitely going to be dropping my rating to a 3, unfortunately. Could be a me problem, not a book problem. Then I listened to The Fiancé Dilemma by Elena Armez, so I rated this book 4 stars. I thought this one was so much fun, and I loved this premise. So this follows our 2 main characters, Josie and Matthew, and Josie has not had the best of luck with men, whether it be her fault or their fault. So she has been engaged 4 times, and she has never made it down the aisle once. And her really super famous rich dad like hops back into her life after not really knowing her at all, and this like secret daughter is a PR nightmare, especially with her like previous relationship. So like people are like talking bad about her, you know. So in order to like revamp her image, her like PR manager is like, well, you have to get married to this person you said you're engaged to, because she's wearing an engagement ring when they meet. And so the first man she sees is Matthew, and she's like, oh, here is my fiance, and they're going to be fake engaged to this small town and to the world, basically. It is their little story throughout. I had so much fun with this one. I really enjoyed the premise of like them fake dating without like even like really knowing each other, because usually you have like fake dating happen when like they're best friends or they're enemies or something like that. But I love that they like had no idea. They kind of knew each other because of the small town aspect, but didn't know each other that well. And I thought it was very interesting, them getting to know each other and trying to like prove to the world that they're in love. Also, there was no miscommunication in this book, hardly at all. No third act breakup, and I love Elena's writing, and I think her stories flow so well, and they're always very entertaining. And I believe as the series goes on, these books are getting better and better. And for a book that I could not wait to be finished with, and it's only like 120 pages, I read Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. Not a good time. So I rated this book 2.5 stars. I would have DNF'd it if it would have been any longer. It was not for me. I read it in one sitting, and I thought it was extremely boring. So this follows like 5 friends who aren't really even friends. Like they don't even like each other, I don't think. And they go to like this creepy mansion house thing to get 2 of them married. And the whole time they're bickering and arguing with each other, so already bad vibes. And then this woman wants their souls, basically. And she's just like creeping around the house. That's it. Extremely boring. That's all I gotta say. But then for a horror book that I absolutely loved, I read Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. So I rated this book 5 stars. Phenomenal horror book. One of my all-time favorites. So this follows Christopher, and he's a small child. And him and his mom moved to this very small town to get away from an abusive relationship, I believe, that is going on in the household. And she thinks this is going to be their fresh start. They're living their best life, you know, and then Christopher, he's missing for 6 days. He goes in the woods, wanders, scurries off, doesn't come back for 6 days. When he comes back, they're like, oh my gosh, a miracle. And then he's like, I have an imaginary friend in my head. We gotta build a tree house. All right, go off, I guess. And it's him basically trying to build this tree house with like his buddies, and like his mom's like, Christopher, what you doing, my guy? And there's so many side characters in this that like were driving me nuts, because it is a long book, but it all kind of adds together, and I loved that aspect of it. All the side characters had so many interesting like interlinking parts that really like came together at the end. Loved the creepy things that were happening. That was making my skin absolutely crawl. And the plot twist after plot twist that happened, and the plot twist on the last page specifically, jaw on the floor. An absolute wild time. Highly recommend this book. Then I read If It Bleeds by Stephen King. I rated this book 3 stars. This book is in 4 short stories, so it's like Mr. Harrigan's Phone, If It Bleeds, Rat, and The Life of Chuck, I believe. And it was okay. I liked 2 of these stories in here, and the other 2 were absolutely boring. I couldn't get into them. And I just feel like this style of book is just not my favorite. I don't like little short stories in them. I don't know why I decided to pick this one up. It just wasn't my favorite. Overall, just like a kind of creepy book. That's all I got for this one. Then what I was really disappointed about, because it is a single dad romance and it just wasn't hitting how I wanted it to hit. So I read Make It Without You by Elise Black. So I rated this book 3.5 stars. And this follows Emily and Adam. But for the first like 25% of the book, Emily is in high school and she is with a man, or like not a man, he's a boy I guess at the time, a boy named James. And it is their like high school relationship into college, I believe. And then, you know, lo and behold, he dies. You know, and like that's thrown in there. And then it's the other like 75-50% of the book is her like trying to figure out her life with all this trauma that she has. And then Adam comes in and he meets her at his bar one night and they kind of hit it off. And then the next time they meet, they realize that she is actually his son's teacher and they're like, oh, we can't do it. And they have that aspect going on there. And it just wasn't my favorite. Okay, I didn't really like the writing style. I just thought the first 25% of the book wasn't needed. Like, you could have just like said like, oh, my boyfriend from high school passed away, or my first love passed away, because it was marketed as a single dad second chance romance. For some reason this whole time I thought like James was gonna come back. Like, I didn't think he was actually dead. That could have been on me. I was just very confused. It wasn't my favorite, and I was looking forward to it so much because a single dad second chance, I was like, I'm sold. I was not, though. Did not want to buy. Then I listened to Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. I rated this book 4.5 stars. So good. So this follows Lucy, and she was accused of murdering her best friend a few years prior. So Lucy and Savvy were like the best of friends, did everything together, seemed to have like the perfect relationship, perfect life. And then one day Lucy is found wandering the streets covered in Savvy's blood. And Lucy has no recollection of what happened or what took place. And there was never enough evidence to pin it on Lucy for killing her best friend. So this man named Ben has a podcast called Listen for the Lies, and he decides he's going to uncover this cold case and figure out who actually killed Savvy. Because even Lucy herself doesn't know if she killed Savvy. Like, she has no memory of it, and she's never been able to like remember or like figure out what actually happened. And it's them trying to uncover this crime, basically. And I highly recommend, if you want to read this book, to listen to it, because the podcast has like intro and outro music. The interviews are so much fun. Like, it is so good as an audiobook. Like, one of my favorite audiobooks of all time, I believe. And I loved how like the story progressed and like you didn't know who to believe like at any point. Highly recommend the audiobook. Then I read Diavola by Jennifer Marie Thorne. I rated this book 4 stars. So this follows Anna, and Anna is going on this family vacation, and her family just don't really mesh. They don't get along. They don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And honestly, it kind of seems like the entire family doesn't really get along. A lot of moving pieces in this that I was a little confused when starting. So they go to this villa. They're kind of like, something seems off about this place. And then like they start hearing noises. The local people are like, can't believe you're staying there. And then just like the entire villa itself just seems a little creepy. And it's basically Anna figuring out what is actually going on in that house. I really like this book. I love the haunted house aspect of it. The demon thing, the creepy thing that was going on, terrifying. I was terrified when reading it at night. It really kind of creeped me out. The stuff that was happening to them was giving me the heebie-jeebies. I couldn't get behind it. But it was such a good haunted house take on a book. Highly recommend if you want more of a spooky vacation vibe, you know? Then I listened to one of my favorite books of the month. So I listened to Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. 4.5 stars. The only half star I took off is I just didn't really like the little plot that was going on, like toward like the 75%, 50% mark. Just, it felt like 2 different stories at one point, but listen, this audiobook had me on my knees, okay? So this follows Allie and Josh. And Allie is a trauma nurse, just kind of going through the motions, and then one day on TikTok, this man pops up wearing a mask and like holding a knife, and she's like, I'm into this. So she texts one of her recent hookups and is like, hey, what do you think about wearing a mask? And he's like, what do you mean? But his roommate's like, what do you mean? Of course I will. So that is Josh. And Josh actually is said person that she sent this DM about. And he is going to kind of stalk her and make all of her fantasies come true. And when I tell you this was so much fun, I was gagged the whole time. The audiobook, I could do a re-listen right now to it because it was that good. It was just so much fun. And what a perfect dark romance that had me like cackling and giggling and like blushing all at the same time. So much fun. I just didn't really like the weird plot that kind of happened halfway through. I wish you would focus more on like their relationship than what they were kind of doing. If that makes any sense. If you've read it, you kind of know the little part I'm talking about. It's just a little strange, but I would still highly recommend it. I think the audio version of it is spectacular. I did buy the audiobook, but I'm definitely going to be going out and buying like a physical copy of it too, because I would love to reread it just because it was that good and that much fun. So those are the 13 books that I read in October. As always, let me know what you read in October. Let me know what your favorite book was. Let me know what your favorite read was. Audiobook, physical book, Kindle Unlimited book, whatever you want to give me. I will gladly take it. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Love yous!